Today on Dr. Phil.
Her dreams of living happily ever after were shattered after finding out the man she married was gay. In your mind and heart, you knew he was gay. What was your thought? He'll do?
I was looking at the good points of it. I have a guy that likes to cook. He likes to sew.
Did you ever say, excuse me, are you gay? The question is, what do we do now?
And how to know if your marriage is doomed before you walk down the aisle.
Coming up. Let's do it.
I want you to get excited about your life.
Here we go, in 10.
Stand by, camera 6.
If it's happening now, we're going to deal with it now.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
This is going to be a changing day in your life.
Stand by A, and roll A, check in. Go, Dr. Phil.
Sometimes you just get that nagging feeling that tells you that something just doesn't feel right. Well, my guests today say that they had that feeling about their spouse before they walked down the aisle. Just something kind of little voice in their head saying, this ain't right. But they looked the other way and they said, I do anyway. Now, Shawn says all she ever wanted was the storybook marriage she dreamed of as a little girl. But her dreams were shattered when she discovered that her husband, Randall, was gay. Now she wants to know, what do we do now? We have children. Do we stay together? Do we get a divorce? What happens now that we both have it out on the table? Take a look.
The day that Shawn and I got married, I was there for the long haul. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't gay.
The signs that I might have overlooked before our marriage were the fact that he liked to sew, he was an interior decorator, he actually sewed my wedding dress.
I was so busy trying to hide the secret that I had to make sure that nothing ever slipped out.
I had suspicions for several years, but I didn't act on it for many years after that. I knew when Randy was gay, when I had found some homosexual pornography.
My wife was driving down the road and had to slam on the brakes, and all of a sudden a black bag of men's magazines flew out from underneath the seat. After I came home from work, she confronted me.
I was extremely angry. I was very hurt.
I didn't deny it. I said, yes, I'm gay, and I've always been gay. You married me and I was gay.
I was lost. My whole world was falling apart around me. I'm losing my husband to another man, and I can't compete with another man. Another woman I could try, but not another man.
We are still currently living together.
Randy and I still sleep together in the same bed. There is no more physical relationship between the two of us. At this point, I have given Randy permission to go out and date. I'm not out looking to date at this point in time. As of this moment, I don't know if it's better to stay together or not. We really don't know.
I'm in love with my wife, but I need to set her free because I think she needs to find the love of her life.
Do you think that he's been deceiving himself, you,
I think he's
both
been
of you? What?
deceiving himself for his entire life.
When did you acknowledge that you were gay? To yourself. I'm not talking to anybody else. I mean, just when did you say, I'm going to stop kidding myself here, I'm gay?
I think once she confronted me, then I really had no choice but to actually admit it and, put all the cards out on the table.
Well, but you didn't do that, right? I mean, because y'all had some glitches along the way. You found some material and you asked about it, and you said, "Oh no, that's just a kind of a fantasy thing. That's just." Did you know then, but you didn't tell her, or you didn't know either?
I think in our marriage, it was on a rocky platform. So at that point, I either had to, choose to say yes, I'm gay, or continue with the fact that I was going to keep trying to hide it. And I think that we were at a point in our lives that we just really needed to say this is the way that it is.
What's your biggest concern now?
My biggest concern right now, I think, is to continuously keep an open relationship so we can proceed along and do what's best for the kids.
Do you think that this relationship as a marriage, as a husband and wife, should end?
Yes.
And how about you?
I agree also.
Okay. One of your questions for me is, from the child standpoint, what is better for us to do at this point?
Right.
And what are your thoughts about that? Just take yourselves out of it, look at it from the child standpoint. You know your children. What do you think?
I think they need to see their parents in an openly affectionate relationship that, I mean, not that we don't sincerely love each other, but I am afraid that they will, or that we will eventually start to resent each other more than we were before we were honest with each other. And then that can just turn everything ugly and nasty, and I don't want the girls to have to go through that. And something that keeps resonating in my mind that I hear you say so often is that children would rather be from a broken home than be in one. And I don't want that for my kids. I don't want them, you know, I don't want to feel 15, 20 years from now, why did I stay? Why did I put my kids through that? I don't want to do that to them. I want everything to be good and happy.
What do you say about that?
I would much rather have us living next door to each other. Obviously, it won't work as a long distance thing, but I would rather be so close that the girls can actually be a part of both of our lives.
Here's the thing, and we're going to take a break, and I'm going to talk to you all about this. The biggest issues, the biggest questions that you have here have nothing to do with the fact that you're gay and married to a woman.
Right.
The biggest issues that you have here from the standpoint of the children is what kind of environment is it? An emotionally barren environment? Is it one where you're not modeling the kind of things that you would want them to see? Is there stability? Is there resentment? Is there a problem that's kind of just under the surface that nobody wants to talk about? And that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you have a mixed orientation marriage here. What that has to do with is that you're a mother and a father, and you're creating an environment for these children. How healthy, how stable, how nurturant, how warm, how right is it in that regard? So I'm going to talk to you about that after the break, and I'm going to talk to you about what the children know and how they found out and what questions they've got in their minds. We'll talk about all that when we come back.
I was really worried about when I was going to tell my friends that my dad was gay. I think that it's a sin, but I don't think that it's that bad of a sin. It's not the worst thing in the world that you can do. My greatest fear is that my mom and dad would get divorced.
Well, that was 12-year-old Morgan, who says her biggest fear is that her mother will divorce her gay father. How do you respond to her saying that?
I just don't want her to be brokenhearted. I want her life to be perfect and happy, and it breaks my heart that she is afraid that we would never speak to each other, that I would move them far away from their dad. And I know she has those fears because it's what happened. His first wife moved away with his first two kids, and I've told her over and over again that that's not my goal. It's not my intention to ever sever her relationship with her dad.
Now, do you think sometimes that you kind of take denial to a higher art form? I mean, this isn't just like a hobby with you. I mean, you said you knew before that you got married that something in your head, and I'm not sure that it was for the right reasons that you attribute it to, but you say first, well, he was an interior decorator. Well, that doesn't mean he's gay, but nonetheless, in your eyes, you thought, well, if he's doing that, then maybe he's gay. Then you said he actually sewed my wedding dress.
Yes.
And that was like a ding, ding, ding for you. And that you said he always hung out with the women and not with the guys who were watching football and all of that. So that was a ding, ding, ding for you. But nonetheless, did you ever say, excuse me, are you gay?
No, I never asked him.
And if she had, you would have said no.
Absolutely. I would have denied it.
How's that working for you?
It's not. We're here.
You know, I mean, exactly. It's not working, right? So we got to stop the denial. And we got to deal with where we are and what we've got. And this isn't a matter of guilt. You're not doing anything wrong. You said this is a difficult lifestyle. Being gay isn't a lifestyle. It isn't like a choice selection type thing. This is hardwired. You've been denying who you are. And you shouldn't feel guilt about that. You shouldn't feel shame about that. But what you should do is own it and all of the decisions that have been made while you were in the denial. You sat down and told your children,
Yes.
tell me when, tell me what, tell me how.
We just kind of brought it up in the conversation like, so how would you feel if your mom was gay? How would you feel if your dad was gay? And they thought we were just kind of joking about the whole situation, but then we said, well, this is what it is.
At dinner?
At dinner.
At home. About a month ago.
It was at
Maybe.
home?
Yes,
Yes.
we were at
Oh,
home.
okay.
No, we were at home.
Yeah. It's not something you want to throw out at Chuck E. Cheese, okay? What did you say? When you finally got to the point where you said the fact, did you say, girls, I'm gay? What were your words? What did you say?
That's probably exactly what I said. I said, your dad is gay. And they said, yeah, right.
What was their understanding at age 10 and 12 of gay?
Like I said, we've been integrating it into their life for the past 6 months or so, just so they kind of know what the lifestyle is. So they,
What the orientation?
right. So they knew what it basically was.
What was their reaction back to you?
The oldest one did, as you saw, she did say that it was a sin. And so we talked about sin at that point in time. And she was concerned how people at church were going to react and that they would possibly kick us out of church and that sort of stuff. And but the younger one is so amazing. I think she's so resilient. At the age of 10, when we were breaking the news to his parents, she actually went down into the bedroom, came back up with a set of pom-poms, cheerleader pom-poms, and stood there and did a cheer for her dad and how much she loved her dad, and no matter what, she loved him.
Let me tell you, the conversation of coming out to children is not a one conversation thing. This is a lifelong conversation. This is an ongoing conversation where across time, as they hit different thresholds maturity-wise, they're going to have different understandings, different awarenesses, and different questions associated with that, which is why one of the things that we've got to do today is resolve that we're going to get out of denial completely and totally here. Because this has created problems. You trying to struggle between the two worlds has caused you to make some bad decisions in the past and get in a bind in a couple of ways that wouldn't have happened had you accepted this and been more forthcoming about it. Same problem can happen going forward. We can't sort of pretend I'm gay, but we're married. I'm just like, okay, this is the integrity of marriage here, but yet I'm going out and dating men. We've got to be right up front about what all of that means and what the decisions are. And then once you decide that, then there are a whole set of options that open up to you that are healthy choices that you can make. And I'm going to tell you guys, listen, I never asked somebody to substitute my judgment for their own. But I'm going to tell you exactly what I think so you can weigh it and make your own decision. action-oriented what should happen next. I'm going to do that right after the break. Today we're talking about marriage dilemmas, and I'm here with Randall and Sean. And the fact is, Randall is gay. He's acknowledged that to himself and to his wife, yet they're in a relationship that is loving. They're in a family that is loving, and they have 2 girls that they're very, very concerned about. The question is, what do we do now? Right. What's best for everybody, right? And first off, are we agreed that good, bad, or indifferent, this is the deal?
Right.
So you've totally wrapped your non-denial mind around that. Because you married a guy that, in your mind and heart, you knew he was gay.
Yeah.
What was your thought at that time? He'll do? I mean, what?
I guess I was looking at the good points of it. I mean, I have a guy that likes to cook. He likes to sew. He likes to hang out with my sisters and my family. And, you know, he's not sitting on the sofa drinking beer watching the games. How lucky am I?
I don't have the remote in my hand.
I have the remote.
It's not...
I do the yard work. He does the housework stuff. So I was, I guess, looking at it how lucky I was in those aspects.
So you're not a victim here.
No.
You were as much a knowing participant in this decision as were you. I mean, both of you, neither of you were like, okay, I'm marrying a gay guy, everybody come to the church. That wasn't it wasn't that level of awareness, and nor was it with you. But you both, you kind of knew what you were getting into here. And so this isn't a matter for somebody to play the victim.
No.
But let's deal with the reality of where we are. If in a perfect world, I would have had you acknowledging this way earlier.
So would I.
And I know, of course, I know. And your family, you would have had this acknowledged a whole lot earlier, right?
Yeah.
Mom,
No.
did y'all know?
Yes.
We suspected.
Well, no one
Okay.
ever knows.
No one ever knows for sure.
Until.
But we had a pretty good idea.
It was
And that's
always,
not something you bring up at the reception, right? So
no,
it was.
We just always had a,
Our own little.
Intuitions.
This is mom, aunt, sisters, everybody that has been involved in this and will continue to be.
Yes.
You have said that your plan is to stay married until the girls get out of high school and go to college, that's an option.
I don't think it's staying married. We're going to stay conjoined.
When I say let's not be in denial, I mean let's call a spade a damn shovel, okay? Let's get right down to where we are. This is not a marriage. No. And you don't want to continue this. My advice to you is that you do get a divorce. Okay. I know that that's a bump in the road for your daughters, but let me tell you something. They will handle this, and they will handle it particularly because the 2 of you are not falling out of love with each other. You're not falling out of regard for each other. You're not wanting to take each other out of your lives. But you have to understand that you have things you want to do. You had this dream of what you wanted, and you shouldn't deny yourself that. Right. And you shouldn't model for your girls that you deny yourself that. See, most of the problems that come from divorce is that the base of operations for the children is fractured, it's threatened. It's threatened. That's their home base. That's where they feel safe. That's where they know that they have that unconditional positive love and regard from the 2 most important people in their life. And what happens in most divorces is because there's so much animosity and sniping at each other, they wind up in a crossfire, they get pulled in a tug-of-war, and they wind up blaming themselves that they've done something wrong that created this fracture, and then they get into guilt, they get into shame, they get into a real state of instability. It doesn't have to be that way here. What you can do is sit down with these girls and say, listen, we have now come to understand who we are and who Dad is. And I love him, and he will always be my best friend, and he will always be all of the things that you've seen in our lives, and he's going to continue to be your father and continue to be involved. And you say the same things in the same positive regard with her. And then make the life commitments to do what you need, but yet endorse and support each other pursuing what their heart and mind tells them that you need to do. I can tell you that's not a perfect solution. I'd never want children to go through a divorce. I don't say that lightly, but I can tell you that I believe the net position that they will be in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now will be greatly enhanced versus if they stayed together in a relationship that is virtually a lie.
Right.
Children are very resilient as long as they see love and mutual support and no fracture of that relationship and bond. I'm going to predict that they do very well. You have very intelligent, articulate, precocious children.
Yes.
And I think they will do well. What do you think about what I'm saying?
I agree with you 100%.
Or what do you think about what I'm saying?
I'm all there.
Well, I know when to shut up. Okay, next, we're going to talk to another woman who knew a little something about her husband before they got married. And now she says he's so lazy, she wants a divorce. We'll be right back.
On a scale of 1 to 10, my husband Robert is definitely a 10 when it comes to being lazy.
Lazy is a subjective term.
For the past 10 months, he hasn't had a job. Robert's been writing a book for the past 2 months. It's about zombies. I think that you could work and still write.
You ever feel like you're running a hotel instead of a household? My next guest, Natalie, does. She says that her husband, Robert, hasn't worked in a year, doesn't help with any of the housework. Robert says that his job is to pursue his dream of writing a book. But Natalie says his book is nothing more than an excuse that he just doesn't want to work. Take a look.
The biggest issue that I have with my husband Robert is that he's very lazy.
Lazy is a subjective term. It's more of a lack of ambition, I guess.
I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, he's definitely a 10 when it comes to being lazy.
If she asks me to do the job, I'll do it, but I don't take the initiative to do it. I feel I do my share of housework.
I think Robert pawns off a lot of his duties on my son, Gavin.
Gavin's 11, and I believe that a boy of 11 years old should have responsibilities. I expect Gavin to do the breakfast dishes and take out the garbage.
I'll come home and I'll say, "Who did the dishes?" And Gavin will say, "I did."
I hate doing the dishes.
My husband Robert does not work. For the past 10 months, he hasn't had a job. He hasn't applied for a job.
A minimum wage job for myself is a complete waste of time. If I worked at $8 an hour for a 40-hour week, I wouldn't be pulling in very much. I lack the education. I cannot get a better job. My mother had passed away, and I have some money that was left to me, and I decided that my dream would be to be a writer. So I decided to start writing a book, and I used the money from my mom to support myself.
Robert's been writing a book for the past 2 months. It's about zombies.
I would write this book even if I had a good paying job right now.
I see him writing, and I also see a bank account dwindling away. He spent a large chunk of money on a very expensive vehicle. He didn't need one with fancy mags and leather interior and all these perks.
I opted out the grill work for custom. I don't understand why Natalie is upset that I'm not working. Not working has not affected us financially other than that we're draining the savings slightly.
In just over a year, he's spent $50,000, the money that his mother left him. I don't think Robert thinks about the good of the family. I can't depend on him to be somewhere on time. I can't depend on him to bring in money. I can't depend on him for anything, really.
Okay. You say it's like being married to a teenager.
It is, very much.
Because he plays video games, watches DVDs, doesn't work,
That's right.
so all of that.
Only difference is with my son, he actually listens to me, but I can't get Robert to stop playing video games.
Yeah, okay. So what do you say about all of this?
I disagree with her, actually. I do my share of the housework, I feel.
Yeah. You're writing a book
Yes.
about zombies,
Yes.
and you kind of think it's like an autobiography. I mean, that's how you describe it, right? I mean, because you're being pretty hard on him. He says, no, I do some stuff around the house.
He does do a few little things. Much more often than not, it's me or our son Gavin.
You've never been real big on working. You said you're the lazy. You said, I'm just lazy.
Well, I worked for 7 years in the same company, so
Yeah.
I don't have a problem working.
What was he doing when you married him?
Delivering Chinese food.
Okay.
But at least he was working. At least he was working.
He says, he made a list for us of things that you do around the house. He says, I wash the dog, I clean the toilet, I clean hair from the bathtub weekly, vacuum twice a week. I cook dinner, but rarely, because she does that. Occasionally help with the laundry, dust occasionally, sweep leaves off the balcony. Occasionally, admittedly rarely, but occasionally take out the trash and makes the bed. At least he does some occasional things, but that's not enough. You want the boy to get a job,
Yes.
right? You want him to get a job and make a financial contribution to
I want
the
to move
family.
forward. I want us to get a home. I want us to expand our family. We can't do that right now.
Yeah. How realistic is it to write this book, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it's very realistic. I
Okay,
think
we'll
that's
talk
something-
about that when we come back. I mean, the question is he a talented, undiscovered writer? Or is this just a socially sanctioned excuse to say, I am working, I'm a writer? We'll be right back.
Because I don't eat breakfast, I feel that I shouldn't have to be forced to do the breakfast dishes for everybody else. I feel that the majority of the messes that the family creates, they can fix, they can clean up their mess, and I believe that would create more harmony in the house.
If something doesn't change, I will end up leaving him. I think it's just a matter of time. I'll leave. Part of me feels like it'll be a relief, but mostly I feel sad. Not sad for me, sad for Robert, because I think he'll be lonely.
Well, Natalie says that she's leaving if her husband doesn't change his lazy ways. She says he watches TV all day while she works 40 hours a week, plus cooks, cleans, and pays the bills. He even gets her 11-year-old son to do his chores, according to her. Now, you say that you just choose not to work.
No, that's not true. Right now, I choose not to work because I feel that writing the book is working. And if the book doesn't work out, then I can always get a job after that.
What do you think's the likelihood that you'll get the book published? Do you think
don't
it's
know.
like a 50-50 chance or a 10% chance or an 80% chance?
I feel that
It's just your opinion. I know there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious what you think.
I think it will get published. I think it will get published 100%. And if it doesn't get published by a major company, I'll do it myself.
And he wants me to wait until all that happens. My fears right now, he's spending the money that his mother's left, and it's disappearing. And I'm worried. I'm worried about what's going to happen. We're going to run out of money.
Can you not write this book and work?
I probably could, but I don't think it would be as good, because when you write a book, well, for me anyway, when I'm writing a book, I need to get into the characters. I need to feel what they're feeling in order to write it accurately. And if I come home from working all day long, I'm not going to really I'm going to be wound up from work. I'll need to relax a bit, and then I'll be tired, and I won't be able to do a good job.
But this is the real world. Let me just tell you, real world. And I know something about publishing. Because I've got, in my family, we published 9 New York Times bestsellers. Even if this is what you want to do, you're doing it wrong. You got to write a proposal, and you got to get somebody behind that proposal, because they'll tell you what direction it needs to take. The chance of anybody ever reading a completed manuscript is probably zero.
Yeah, I understand.
They'll just never read it. They'll read a proposal, they will not read your book. I mean, do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes, I agree with you 100%. There's no guarantee. There's nothing saying that this book is going to work. So I mean, I know his heart is into it, and I don't want to crush that. But at the same time, he needs to work. He needs to support.
Yeah, and I don't get this that you feel like you'll be like too tired. I've written 6 books, sold 25 million copies, and every one I wrote while I had a job. I mean, I did it while I was working. I would go do work, and then I would write. And then I would go work, and I would come write. And then on weekends, I would write some more. And then I'd let it sit aside, and then I'd go back and look at it, and then I'd write some more. I didn't just say, well, Robin, I'm moving in. Good. Stay here and write.
He doesn't want to do anything that's exerts him physically. He doesn't want to do anything that requires him to be anywhere for a long period of time. He has a reason for not wanting to do whatever.
But you need to do that. And I can tell you, just one writer to a wannabe writer, let me tell you, you'll do better working and writing because you stimulate, you see people, you get input, you get thoughts, you hear a phrase, you see a personality, you see a setting, you see something that stimulates you. Unless you got a lot of like zombies in your den or something, you got to get out in the world and interact with the world. I mean, that's the fiber of what you write about. I promise you that's true. You need a job. You need a job because it will help you do what you're doing and it will help you in your marriage. You need a job.
It does.
All right. Next, a newlywed who wrote to me before the wedding, and now 1 year later, she's writing me a new letter. And this time, her problem has gotten worse, but it's the same problem she wrote to me about before she got married to begin with. So, are we headed for a third email? We'll see. Be right back.
Dan thinks I'm lazy. He's used the words irresponsible, unorganized, you're lazy. He does everything in the house and I sit on my butt and do nothing.
I do not feel that she is doing her part in our marriage.
I definitely think that Dan is nagging me. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little kid. I don't care.
Well, today we're talking to couples where one spouse says the other is just lazy. Now, my next guest, Selena, says that her husband, Dan, treats her like a child when it comes to cleaning. Dan says Selena is just lazy and irresponsible like a child.
Selena is my wife. We've been married a year and a half.
Dan thinks I'm lazy. He's used the words irresponsible, unorganized, you're lazy.
She tends to be a little lazy, and it's causing a lot of fights between us.
I definitely don't like cleaning. I like it when it looks clean. I just don't like spending the time doing it.
I do not feel that she is doing her part in our marriage.
I definitely think that Dan is nagging me. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little kid.
On a day-to-day basis, she comes home from work, she'll get the mail and throw it on our table and just leave it there. And when I come home from work and see that, it just stresses me out.
My thought is if he has such a problem with it, then he should take up the responsibility of paying the bills.
When it comes to folding or putting the clothes away, she'll throw them all in a basket. Which ones are clean? Which ones are dirty? I don't know where to put them. They're just all mixed in together.
They're all clean. I don't care. Dan usually does most of the vacuuming. I didn't even know how to use the vacuum. Dan does more of like the picking up and putting things away.
When I'm organizing and cleaning the house and I see Selena relaxing, if I'm tired and I feel like I need help and she's not willing to give it to me, I'm gonna blow.
I don't see the mess. I'll walk by something 10 times and I just don't see it. My bedroom looks like a tornado hit it.
Every night Selena goes to bed, she will bring water with her. And the glass never seems to make it back downstairs to the kitchen, so it will just sit and accumulate in our bedroom. If Selena cannot be responsible for herself, how will she be able to be responsible for our children?
It makes me upset that Dan thinks that I'm irresponsible to have a baby. That's pretty much saying he doesn't think I'm mature enough to have a child because he thinks that I'm not going to clean up after it.
If we do not settle our disputes now, the problems are going to get more serious.
Sometimes I think that we're not the right people to be together because we can't get past certain things, and that like really hurts me.
Okay. Now, you wrote to me before you got married and said, we have a problem here. We just see things very differently about this cleaning up stuff, this cleanliness and all of that, and I'm concerned that if I get married, it's a problem. Should we work this out before we get married? I didn't answer. Well, we get a lot of mail. I didn't answer that. And then I get a second email from you that says, I wrote to you before I got married and asked about this, and now we're married and it's a problem. What do we do now? Because we're thinking about having a child. He doesn't want to have a child because he thinks I'm not responsible enough, right? You think she's not responsible enough to have a child?
I think if we had a child, it would just bring that much more stress on our relationship, cause more arguments than we're already having. I think we should get to the bottom of our problems before we have children.
Well, you said, how can we have a baby if you can't take care of yourself? That's a quote from you.
Yes, I did say that.
And he said that to you, right?
He did.
So you both knew this was a problem before you got married. You knew it, and you walked the aisle. You knew it, you walked the aisle.
Well,
so now you're at the other end of the aisle.
Well, we had an in-depth conversation before we got married. And we were living with her mother. She promised me once we were on our own, things were going to be completely different. When she would have her own house, she would be more responsible. Since it's hers, she would take better care of it, blah, blah, blah.
And you believe that?
Yeah,
What happens when you got a problem before you get married and you think that filling out some paperwork and going down to church that's going to solve that problem? What that does is it just takes that problem that you're experiencing part-time and it now becomes full-time.
I just want an equal effort. If I'm doing laundry, if I'm vacuuming, if I'm organizing the bills, I would appreciate just a little effort. I've told her before, if she just shows me a little bit of an effort, I think that would help out a lot.
Well, you want to know what I think?
Yeah.
If your marriage is in this much trouble over how the laundry is sorted or how the mail is arranged, you got much bigger problems than what you're actually talking about, because those are not important enough that they would jeopardize the entire relationship. And you should not, repeat, underline, should not have a baby unless and until this gets resolved. I mean, whatever's going on here, whether this is the issue or this is a topic, you shouldn't be having a baby till you get this resolved. Do you agree?
Yes and no. Like, I am a teacher and I do tons of work at home, and that's what a lot of the thing is that on the weekends I would rather relax than, clean up the whole entire house. That's more of the issue. I mean, I don't know.
She's not going to change. Because you have things that you value like this high, and she values them this high. It's just not that important to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't apologize for that. That's just who you are. You're just going to have to negotiate that out in your relationship because she's not going to change. And I think you're absolutely wrong to say she's irresponsible. Because she's not irresponsible. She just doesn't have the same values, the same priorities that you do. So you take care of things that are important to you, and you take care of things that are important to you, and what's left in the middle, you just have to negotiate. Okay, next, a mother who fears she'll pass her laziness on to her kids, which can happen. But it's not laziness with you, it's value. You see the difference? We'll talk about that when we come back. Well, we have a mother here who says that she's been lazy since she was a child. Now, we were talking with you, it's a value, but Kelly says, it's not a value, I'm just lazy. She said she'd rather do nothing than something. Now she fears her children will follow in her lazy footsteps. You think you're modeling this?
Yeah, I see it with my kids a lot. They see me sitting around the house all day, and so they're going to sit around the house all day.
Yeah, so your question is, will you pass this on to your kids?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. You will. You model this, and they learn to live. They learn to live in a like a frenzied, cluttered environment. Then that's just what feels comfortable to them. And if they grow up in like a museum where everything's just perfect and polished, then that's what's normal to them. So, yeah, you will pass it on. Why are you lazy?
I'm the youngest of 9, And by the time my mom was done raising us all, she sat and read books and played crossword puzzles all day, and I don't blame her, she did her work. But, and maybe that's why, because maybe I learned it at home too.
Well, there you go. I rest my case. Thanks for being here today. So long.